Einen wunderschönen guten Abend zusammen. Schön, dass ihr euch die Zeit nehmt, auch zu später Stunde noch mit uns ein neues USA-Webinar anzuschauen. Herzlich willkommen zum Neu bei Visit USA Webinar. Heute geht es, wie ihr sehen könnt, um zwei ganz spannende Partner. Wir gehen einmal nach Anchorage, nach Alaska. Da seht ihr, Outdoor steht dort absolut im Vordergrund. Und einmal haben wir Eagle Rider auf dem Programm, also Motorradtouren quer durch die USA, geführt, nicht geführt. Da werden wir jede Menge zu diesem Thema auch noch erfahren. We got two great partners with us today. If you would just like to say hi for a bit, we got Katy from Visit Anchorage and we got Kat from Eagle Rider. Hi there. All right.
Hello.
Hi. Well, thanks for joining us. You got up very early for us, so thanks for that. So now it's time for our first partner. We'll go straight to Anchorage, to Alaska with Katy.
Hi there. I was going to say good morning, but it is just morning here in Alaska, about 7 a.m. here. But I know it's probably around 5 o'clock there, so you're kind of ending your day. So Thanks for coming, and I'm excited to talk to you more about Anchorage, Alaska. So with the short amount of time I have, I thought it'd be kind of fun to go through the 20 best things that you can do in Anchorage. There are certainly far more things that can be done in Anchorage, but I thought it'd be kind of nice to highlight some top activities for your clients to do while they're here. But if you ever have any more questions or need anything about what else they could do, I can certainly help you with that at a later time. But let's jump in. When your clients come up to Alaska, I bet they will want to see some wildlife, and we have that in Alaska for sure. But in Anchorage, we actually have about 1,500 moose that live within the city limits. So pretty good chance of getting to see a moose while they are here. We see them out on our hiking trails. We see them, I see them in my backyard, outside of my office. Sometimes they lay right behind your car so that you're late for work in the morning. But we see them quite often throughout the city. So good chance at seeing some wildlife. Our second best thing to do is to view and listen to glaciers. You can actually hear glaciers, especially when they look like this glacier here. This is called a tidewater glacier. And as it nears the water, it's called calving. So it actually falls off and breaks into the water, and it makes this amazing crackling noise. But there's many different types of glaciers. Within about 50 miles of Anchorage, we have 60 glaciers. So lots of opportunities to get to see glaciers. So you could take boat tours like this. You can go flight seeing to see glaciers, whether that be in a small plane or in a helicopter, and then they actually land on those glaciers. So you get to get out in the middle of the mountains and stand on a glacier for about 20 or 30 minutes. You can go hiking on glaciers. There's all different types of ways to experience them, and I definitely recommend that your clients at least do one, but maybe do a couple, because glaciers are pretty spectacular and they all look different. So it's really cool to get to see a few of them. Number 3 is to learn about our indigenous cultures. So Alaska Native culture is really something quite interesting to learn about. In Anchorage, we have our Alaska Native Heritage Center, and it's about 15 minutes outside of downtown. There is a shuttle that leaves from downtown at our visitor center that can take your clients out there. But while they're there, they really get immersed into Alaska Native cultures. They do different performances there throughout the day, or demonstrations of Alaska Native dance and storytelling, and their Alaska Native games. And then out back, there's a big lake with dwellings around it, where you can actually go inside and see how they traditionally lived in different regions of Alaska. Because the state's really big, depending on where they lived quite differently, because the weather can be quite colder in some areas and much warmer or rainier in some places. So it's pretty interesting to get to go out there and explore. Then getting out on our coastal trail, or really any of our trails here in Anchorage, we have over 100 miles of trails just in our city and many more throughout the state. But getting out on trails allows you to get to see things that you can't just see from the road system. But the coastal trail, you can actually access right from downtown Anchorage, whether you want to go walking on it or maybe go for a nice jog. But you can also rent bikes from downtown and you can bike the coastal trail. It's about 14 miles of nice paved trail and you get some pretty amazing views. There you can see that couple looking at the city. That's downtown Anchorage there. And you can see those beautiful mountains we're surrounded by. Those are the Chugach Mountains. But we're actually surrounded by 6 mountain ranges here in Anchorage. So pretty spectacular to get out on the trails and explore some of those. And then I had mentioned flight seeing to glaciers, so you can see that here. But also getting out flight seeing allows you to see a lot of Alaska that you can't see from the road system. The part of Alaska that you can actually drive on is very small compared to the rest of the state. So getting up in the air is a must. Again, we have small planes like these, we have helicopters, and they take you out to see some pretty amazing things. Number 6, going to Alaska's largest museum. It's the Anchorage Museum, and that is right here in downtown. I can actually see it right out of my office window. And it is a quite large museum, as you could imagine, but it is pretty spectacular for the size of our city. It's got exhibits that stay all the time, and then we always have rotating exhibits, so there's something new. But some of those exhibits that are always there are our Alaska exhibit, where you can go learn about how we became the 49th state. We have a fine arts exhibit with some pretty amazing local Alaska artists work in there. And then we also have an Alaska Native Cultures exhibit at the museum. So that's also a great place to go learn about Alaska Native culture. Then number 7, enjoy picture perfect parks. We have quite a few state parks in Alaska, but also national parks. So we actually have 8 national parks throughout Alaska. 5 of them are fairly accessible from Anchorage, but this is at one of our state parks. This is in Chugach State Park, and you can see this trail led them out to this amazing glacier. So there's another type of glacier that you can see there. They are all absolutely spectacular to get out to, but definitely getting out, exploring parks, exploring our trail systems is a must-do. And then salmon fishing at Ship Creek. So Ship Creek is right in downtown Anchorage. They're right up top of that picture. That is downtown. So if you have clients that really want to try salmon fishing while they're here, this is a really great option if they only have maybe a few hours to commit to it. So they can walk down to Ship Creek. There'll be a little red shack called the Bait Shack where they can get their fishing license, their fishing gear, and anything they might need. And then hopefully they'll catch a salmon like this gal did and get that experience, which is really neat. We have 5 different species of salmon in Alaska, and they actually will all run through Ship Creek in downtown Anchorage. So depending on the time of summer they're here, is depending on what type of salmon they might catch.
Do you know how much the fishing license roughly is?
I think a day pass is somewhere around $60 for a non-resident, so not too bad.
Thanks. Yeah.
And then to ride the Alaska Railroad, I highly recommend this. They could use the railroad for the whole portion of their trip, or they could just do one segment on the railroad. But the tracks run from Anchorage all the way up to Fairbanks, and then they'll run south from Anchorage down to Seward. So if you have clients that maybe are going to do a one-way cruise and end up in Alaska, when they land in Seward or Whittier in those ports, they could actually take the railroad and get up to Anchorage and start a land portion of their trip. But it's really nice to just sit back and relax on the train. They serve meals and they have beverages and just take in all the views along the way, because everywhere you go in Alaska, it is pretty stunning. So this is a really great way to travel. Then number 10, our local brews. So just here in Anchorage, We have about 16 local breweries. We also have some cideries, local distilleries. So if you have some clients that want to try out some of our local beers or beverages, they certainly have an opportunity to do that. We also have lots of local coffee shops too, where they do local roast. So lots of great different types of beverages to try out. Big Swig Tours is a brewery tour company out of Anchorage. So if they want to do a behind the scenes tour at some of the breweries, that's a great option as well. Number 11, strike it rich at a gold mine. That sounds great, right? So right outside of Anchorage, as you head south, you can actually go gold mining, and they'll show you how to use the gold pan, and you'll get down in the water like these folks. And if you do find any gold, you actually get to keep it. Typically it's like little flakes of gold, but if you find enough of them, it makes like a really pretty, you can put it in like a little jar and make a pendant on a necklace, or just keep it and bring it home as a souvenir. But it is a pretty fun thing to get to try out. And then going bear viewing. So right from Anchorage, you can get on a float plane, which is what we saw in the other photo, that plane that lands on the water. And they can take you out to go bear viewing. So this is pretty popular. You may have heard of Katmai National Park before, or seen those bears in waterfalls grabbing salmon. So that's definitely an option, but there's quite a few places that you can go to actually see the bears in the summertime catching the salmon. And that is really amazing to get to go see, because these bears get unbelievably large, especially by the end of the summer when they've eaten all of those fish. Quite neat to get to go see. There's actually live cameras too. Like if you type in Katmai bear viewing, it'll come up and you can actually watch the bears in the summertime in the water catching the fish right from your computer, which is neat too. And then the northern lights. So we do see those here in Anchorage and throughout all of Alaska. But if you have clients coming towards the end of our summer season, so about mid-August, we actually start to see northern lights. So we see them from mid-August all the way through April. So most of the months, we just don't see them in those peak summer months because the sun doesn't really set. So it has to get dark to see the northern lights. But you can see here, it is probably sometime in September. Those beautiful fall colors are out. The lake isn't frozen yet. And we get quite a few great showings in the end of August and in September.
Yeah. Well, seeing the northern lights is one of the most fascinating things I've done. So it's really a must do. So whenever you can travel in that time period, I would highly recommend to do that.
Yes, it's very spectacular. And I definitely recommend going out with a guide. Because they will give you your best chance at getting to see them. They know all the great places to go and where the solar activity is going to be highest and where holes in the clouds might be. So definitely go out with a guide while you're here. And then number 14, to try dog sledding. So in the summertime, we don't have snow on the ground, but as you can see in that picture on, I think on your right side, they're in that gravel and the dirt. So they'll actually do it on big wheeled carts. It is super fun. But then also in the summer, if you have clients that want to go dog sledding in the snow, they can actually fly in that helicopter and land on the glacier. And then on the glacier, they can actually go dog mushing, which is really pretty much amazing experience. It checks off a lot of boxes of flight seeing and landing on a glacier and then driving a dog sled on a glacier. And you actually get to drive your own. So you're fully in control of that team, which is a wild feeling. You can actually feel that power of those dogs.
That's great. Yeah.
And then number 15, so during those other months that you can't see the northern lights, you can experience the midnight sun. So just, I think it was 3 days ago, we had our last day where we'll get full darkness in Anchorage. So from now on, it doesn't get fully dark. We'll get a little bit of twilight, and then this will go all the way through August. When you're here in June during summer solstice, the sun pretty much doesn't set. You'll just see it kind of go right below the horizon and pop right back up. So it's a really neat thing to get to experience, where you could go on a hike or you could go fishing at 10 or 11 at night and you don't end up in the dark. It also kind of messes with you a little bit. We play pretty hard in the summertime, but we all have blackout curtains and they're in all the hotels too. So when you're tired, you just close them and it's like it's dark outside and you can take a little nap. And then we have lots of amazing shopping in Anchorage. We have great shops throughout downtown. Something to note is that in Anchorage, we are tax-free, and that's not everywhere in Alaska. So a lot of people wait until they get to Anchorage to buy all their souvenirs to take home because we don't have any tax. But we have really great locally made Alaska souvenirs to take home. You can even also buy like Alaska native made goods as well. So lots of great shopping to do. Riding the tram at Alaska is pretty spectacular. So this is at Girdwood, which is our largest ski resort. But in the summer, they have this tram that you can see there. And you pick it up from the bottom of the hotel and you take it up to the top of Mount Alaska and you get amazing views that overlook what we call the Turnagain Arm, which is that body of water that you can see there. And then all of those mountains surrounding it. You can actually see 7 glaciers from up at the top. And then there's a little bar and cafe where you can have lunch or have maybe a beverage up there. And then there's also a fine dining restaurant called 7 Glaciers, which is really great if you have someone celebrating like a special occasion. Great place to go have a meal. And then watching the boar tide, number 18. So in Alaska, we have the largest tidal change, or we have the second largest tidal change. So this is something really cool to get to watch. This is in that Turnagain Arm that we had just kind of shown where the tram was. And so when the tide goes out, it fully goes away. You can see all the ground where the water normally is. And then it comes in really quickly, which creates a wave. And sometimes you'll see folks like this actually surfing the boar tide back in. So pretty neat to see that giant tidal change during the day. And then tasting Alaska. So we have lots of amazing seafood here. We have halibut, salmon, king crab, local oysters and shrimp, pretty much all of the seafood you can imagine. And most of our restaurants are locally owned and use all of this amazing seafood as well as locally sourced vegetables and things like that. So definitely getting out to those local restaurants and trying some of our food. And then the last one is getting local, heading out to some of our music and festivals and events. We love to celebrate everything here in Alaska. So there's always lots of events happening. We actually have an events calendar on our website. So if you have clients coming up and you want to try to tie something into their trip, definitely go check that out. Some of our big ones are our state fair that happened in August and September, the Iditarod, which happens in March, which is that big sled dog race. But we have tons of festivals throughout the year. Then the last thing I'll mention and I'll wrap up is all of our sales materials that we have. Anchorage.net. If you remember that, there's a big travel trade button at the top that you can go visit. And you can see all of our sales materials digitally. We have our visitor guide on there. We have a travel trade planner, which has example itineraries and commissionable products, and all kinds of good information for you in there. And then you can always also email us. I'll drop my email in the chat if you ever have questions or need help with itinerary planning or need some suggestions for some local companies to use for your clients while they are up here. But I'll wrap up with that. And thank you guys so much for coming to listen to us this morning.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Katy. There are 2 questions that just came in. One, is there like an outlet mall or something along the lines that's available in Anchorage?
We don't have an outlet mall. We do just have some regular malls, but no outlet mall.
Mm-hmm. And then the next question was what the situation concerning mosquitoes is like in Anchorage. So is it enough to just like use the regular mosquito repellent, or would you really recommend dressing with long sleeves and stuff?
I think it's just fine to use regular mosquito repellent. The places in Alaska where mosquitoes are really bad are like out in the backcountry. If you had like flew in and got dropped off at a remote lake in the middle of nowhere, you would have pretty bad mosquitoes. But if you're staying kind of close to the road system, you're going to be just fine.
And then I can only recommend the dark green off. It's called Deep Woods. So that's the one that works best for me. So very dark green color off, Deep Woods. That's what I just can recommend from my own experience. What's the temperature like at the moment in Anchorage? That's an interesting question. We never had that.
Right now, it's about 40 degrees Fahrenheit here in Anchorage.
So which would be like 4 degrees Celsius. And during the day, what will you get?
It'll only get about 10 degrees warmer right now during the day.
Yeah, so like 10 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
That is. All right. Perfect. Well, if there are any other questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat. We will have some time later on to get back to Katy once again. She just posted her email address if you have any questions to her directly, and you will receive a follow-up email from her. So no worries at all if there's any question you still might have left. So thank you so much, Katy. Very interesting, great place to visit. So let's all fly to Anchorage. Also, machen wir auf Deutsch weiter. Wir haben unsere nächste Roadshow, die ansteht im Juni. Wir haben 8 Städte, in die wir innerhalb von 2 Wochen gehen. Das haben wir so auch noch nicht gemacht. Das heißt, das wird die größte WUSA Roadshow, die wir je gemacht haben. Nennt sich unsere Bowling-Workshops, aber keine Angst. Also es geht jetzt nicht um Profi-Bowling. Die Events finden in Bowling-Centern statt. Wir werden am Ende auch eine kleine Runde bowlen, aber da geht es nur um den Spaß. Also die Partner stehen da eindeutig im Vordergrund und am Ende kann man noch eine Runde Bowling spielen. Also es ist jetzt kein Workshop, um eure Bowling-Künste zu verbessern. Wie ihr sehen könnt, wir gehen in der ersten Juniwoche nach Koblenz, Wiesbaden, Stuttgart und Friedrichshafen. In der zweiten Woche dann nach Lübeck, Berlin, Hannover und zum Abschluss nach Hamburg. Also wenn ihr irgendwo in Reichweite seid, kommt vorbei, meldet euch an über unsere Website, über wusa.travel. Da würden wir uns dann sehr, sehr freuen, euch im Juni live zu sehen. Bekommt ihr auch im Follow-up natürlich diese ganzen Infos von mir, die Anmeldelinks, das wird alles mit dabei sein. And then, well, the last thing we have, are there any open questions concerning Anchorage, concerning Eagle Rider? Is there anything you would like to ask Katy and Kat? Is there any open question left? So, well, as we said, you will have everyone's contact details, you will have everyone's follow-up emails. So whenever you need to follow up with them, you need to ask them questions, please reach out to them directly. So Katy and Kat, thank you very much for taking the time, for getting up so early for us. Oh yeah, Kat, you just sent or wrote your email address. Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, thanks for taking the time, for being with us, for getting up early, and well, see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.